Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all. And thank you very much for being with us. It's going to be a fabulous, fast-paced 90 minutes. And we're very grateful for our speakers and for each of you for being here. So my name is Linda Smith. I'm the CEO of 50Plus-Skills. And we want to just thank our sponsors, Just Retirement Specialists, for putting this event together with us, and to our speakers who you're going to be hearing from. So just for some housekeeping before we get going, I hope you can see everybody on the screen. If you can't, there is if you take your mouse up to the top of the screen, it says gallery view or speaker view. So click it so you can see, you should be able to see 25 people at a time on your screen. If you want to see more, you need to be able to screen to the next lot. And we should have almost 100 people eventually on this call today. So we really, it's fabulous to have so many people together. When someone is speaking, if you want to get a better view of them, you can click over and then you will be able to see just the speaker. So that's the one thing. The other, at the bottom, there is a chat box. Please use the chat box. I would love you can either chat to one person or to everyone. Tell us where you're from this morning and who you are and what you're excited about this morning. We'd love you to do that. Also, with the chat box, if you want to, at the end, there is a button next to the chat that allows you to save the entire chat box. So you would be able to get the conversation and the questions. And what we're hoping to do at the end, if we don't get to the questions, is to be able to answer those and put them back to you in writing afterwards. So it will just depend on how we go. We're going to run with 2 speakers, then a breakout session for you to do some networking and discussion, and then the last 2 speakers, and then a Q&A at the end. So if you can, just keep yourselves on mute while the speakers are speaking, just to make sure that we cut out any background noise. And so over to myself as the opening speaker. And the song that I chose this morning was A Million Dreams, because I really believe that we're at a time where we all need to dream again. And it's difficult right now, but I'm hoping that at the end of the session today, that you will look back and say, I have hope again for my life. And so I'm going to be speaking about new stages and a longer life that's reimagined. So this executive summary from Davos in 2020, for the very first time ever at Davos this year, longevity made it onto the agenda. And basically, the research around the world is saying that we are living 10 years longer than our parents' generation and nearly 2 decades longer than our grandparents' generation. And so this is a huge macro trend that is starting to change the world. So there are 3 macro trends that I want to basically just talk about this morning. The first one being longevity. And the big change is coming in the middle age to early old age, which is the group of where most of us on the call. And this is the part of life that we need to reimagine for ourselves. The second big macro trend that is impacting our lives is technology. And basically, you will see in this picture, you can't see the other side of the cliff, but we are moving more from the 20th century world into this 21st century world, from an analog world to a digital world. And this needs a whole new communication structure where we learn to communicate by learning to write and to read. Yes, those communication skills are still needed, but digital literacy is a new skill. And so to engage in this new world, these are some of the skills that we need to continue to learn. Now, this looks quite scary as a picture, but one of the things that we do at 50 Plus and spend a lot of time is helping this generation to catch up and make sure that they can communicate in a digital world. And then obviously, thirdly, COVID came along at a point in our lives here in 2020. And in many cases, I've heard a number of speakers talking about 2030 arrived in 2020, because what happened is that many of us had to shift into a much higher gear at a faster pace than was expected for us as a generation. So these are the three macro trends: the longevity, technology, and now COVID-19, that has brought us to this crossroads where we are. Sorry, now my computer has frozen, which is very irritating. Let me try that again. Find sometimes when this happens that it's easier just to do it this way. So this, my next slide is around from a thought leader that I follow on LinkedIn and Twitter, who has an amazing ability of taking these complex issues and turning them into visuals that make sense. So Heather McGowan has drawn this visual that she uses in her presentation. So the old paradigm of the 20th century was this bottom section of the screen, where the first 25 years was around education. Then we went more into family, marriage, work. We retired, and then a number of years later, we died. But the retirement piece, and because there wasn't longevity, was much shorter. What's happening now in our emerging reality is the top part of the visual, is that change is coming at a much faster pace than we've ever seen in the history of mankind. Much of it obviously formed by the technology that's driving it. COVID-19 would be one of those. It's making a massive change to the way in which we needing to adapt all the time. And so this slide means that we need to keep learning, and we need to keep working for longer, because we're going to live longer, and in many cases we may not have saved enough. Sorry, now this is really not looking great in this format, but let me just try and go back to where we were. Okay, so really what's happened is that a line has been drawn, and we have to, with these changes, reimagine our future. And so I want you each to reimagine a number of futures for yourself as you listen to the speakers today. And there is a book, a new book out called The New Long Life by Professor Linda Grattan and Andrew Scott, that basically talks about three major things that I'm going to talk to you that you need to think about as you reimagine your future. I also want to just remind you that we are all unique. Not one of us that arrives at 50, 55, 60, or 65, or wherever you are right now, is the same. We all have good, bad health, enough money, not enough money. And so we really need to make sure that we redesign what works for us with our talents and skills. And it's about putting all the pieces of your puzzle together to build your own masterpiece at this point. So the three things quickly that they talk about in the book is that much of what you need to reimagine comes out of your own story. You need to be very clear about your own narrative, who you are, what your skills are, what's your personality, where do you want to live, what do you really want to do? These are the things, and digging deep into our story helps us to be able to understand and make sense of our world. The second thing they talk about is exploring and experimenting. And in this time, while you're exploring and experimenting, you reimagine a number of things that might take you down one of the paths. But part of it is some experiments may not work, but it's part of the building blocks for reimagining. And it's about skills, it's about purpose, it's about looking at new options for yourself. I loved this picture when I saw it because it It really explains, I think, a lot about how our generation has moved through the workplace. The knowledge economy was critical, but now we have Google, and we're able to basically find any information we need at our fingertips. Then experience became critical and important, and experience certainly still is important. But part of this experimentation phase is about reconnecting the dots differently, because there are a number of options of ways in which you could reconnect. And it needs to be about play and fun at this point. The third thing they talk about in the book is about the people in your inner circle and your relationships, your family, your friends, your community are absolutely critical to reimagine your future. So these are some questions that you need to be asking yourself at this time. How can I remain economically active and work for longer? Now, working for longer is not about handing out your CV. It's about building a blended life for yourself where there are pockets of work and pockets of leisure. And it's about discovering how you do that and work remotely, as many of us have been able to do at this time. To be able to do these things, we need to remain physically and mentally active. A big question I want all of you to really think about is, what do you really think about aging? Because part of longevity is that aging is being disruptive. As we find how much health practices and what we eat and our stress impact us, and we change our behaviors, we disrupt aging for ourselves. Obviously, genetics is a part, but they're talking a lot more about how behavior plays a big part. Where do I find my sense of belonging? That's absolutely critical for all of us. Have you given yourself time to think about the future? Talking to those closest to us and reimagining it together as couples and as families. And where do you go if you really need to look for advice? Those of us at 50 plus really feel that the questions that I've just faced are central to who we are at 50 plus. We run a lot of online courses with teaching, a sense of belonging in the season, newsletters, these kinds of conferences, discounted events. So we really want to encourage those of you on the call who are not paid members to do so. You can either do it at 500 Rand with an annual membership or at 50 Rand a month, and it all can be done on our website. So just in closing, I really want to encourage you to reimagine your future, expand your insights, start to look about how you can build new networks. Belonging to 50 plus may be one of those ways. Experimenting, and you know, failure is not fatal. That's what experimentation is about. It's about learning, creating new projects and building a new way to live and to work, and to reimagine for yourself a new sense of adventure, passion, and hope. So we really hope that you will join us at this point, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the event today. Thank you very much. I hope that kept into my time frame. I've been very strict. And if I wasn't strict on myself, I'm sure I wouldn't be able to be strict on the rest of the speakers. So 12 to 15 minutes each, and we are now at 10:16. So I'm going to introduce you to Dean, who is the CEO of Just Retirement and also the sponsors of our event today. Thank you, Dean. I really appreciate the fact that you are part of this event, and that you as an organization really support the 50 plus generation in South Africa. It really is wonderful to know that there are organizations that look to the work that we're doing and to this demographic as something that's important to them. So over to you for your conversation with the group.
Excellent. Great. Linda, we're really proud as an organization to be associated with the work that you in specific are doing, and just everything around 50 plus skills. As an organization, we focused purely on retirement and retirement income And so the demographics an absolutely perfect fit with what we're trying to do. So yeah, really excited about everything that you're doing. I celebrated my Life Begins at 50 party a few years ago. I'm living that dream. So I still feel like I'm slightly older than my firstborn, who's 2. And we are really looking forward to welcoming our second in 3 months' time. The first was born in the drought in Cape Town, and the second's coming in the COVID crisis. So timing is everything. That's life, and all the interesting things that life throws to us. So let me share my screen. Okay, there we go. Share screen. Choose the right screen. And so Michelle's going to shout at me if you can't see what I think you can see.
We're not seeing it yet, Dean.
Sorry, you're not seeing it?
No.
Okay.
Unshare and do it again. Sometimes that's what is needed.
Okay. So let's see, one participant can share at a time.
Okay. Now we got
screen sharing. That looks like it. Okay, brilliant. Great. And then this should take me into then I think you're seeing exactly what I want you to see.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll focus now on what about retirement, and how do you plan for your retirement? And basically, everybody going into retirement has 3 main objectives. You've got some immediate needs that come up, normally just at the time that you retire, maybe clearing debt, that type of thing. And then in negotiating this retirement journey, you're going to have your basic lifetime needs, groceries, rent, medical expenses, travel, those sort of costs. And then you'll have your aspirations over and above that of things that you'd like to achieve. Somehow we automatically assume that turning a certain age automatically qualifies everybody to manage an optimal investment portfolio, to deliver a sustainable income, protect against inflation, and make that last for life. It's not necessarily an automatic qualification, particularly when you think of the constraints that you may face. And today's a fantastic day for dealing with the first one, that you may not be in formal employment at the time. There's limits to how you can reduce your consumption, so that basic needs element, there's not much you can do about reducing that. In common with most South Africans, you'll probably find resources are quite limited in retirement. And how do you manage all of that within a risk appetite? Because you want to make sure that you still have sufficient through life. Interestingly, the COVID crisis provoked a lot of anxiety and people running around saying, the market's fallen, what should I be doing now that has happened? Actually, what you should do in that situation and in every situation in retirement is the same. So that's maybe the good news through all of that. And also the other good news is it's not too late to do that. So really, I think the most important thing you can do as somebody in this stage of life is think about retirement savings in 2 pots. The first pot is the pot that's going to give you peace of mind and meet your needs. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing will give you a sustainable retirement income for life that will cover your essential expenses. So when you get into this pot, and we'll give you a tool a little bit later, you really want to strip out and identify what are your essential expenses that you need to cover. And then everything else goes into this big bucket called, or big pot called aspiration. So, which is then the areas where you've got a little bit more discretion around how you would spend, and maybe you'd like to leave something as a legacy. So that's nice theory, but what can you do sensibly at the moment to try and do something about that? So the first thing is to draw up a retirement budget. And when we do surveys, a lot of people say they know they should do that. They're perhaps not certain of how to do it, and very few people have actually done it. So you want to actually spend a bit of time on the detail and look at those two pots. The first pot, one big pot, the groceries, rent, utility bills, medical insurance, possible future frail care needs, transport, those sort of items. And the second pot, the wants or aspirations around travel, shopping, dining out. I'm saying maybe even TV. If you followed Bruce Cameron's articles recently in the Daily Maverick, he had a lovely list of things you can do in retirement as well. And the suggestion in there that actually getting out and having a good walk is free and maybe better than some of the TV or other habits one might get into. And then legacy. Now legacy is great if you can afford that. If not, don't live an unrealistic dream if you can identify early on in retirement that actually there's not much, there's not sufficient to leave a capital legacy. So let me elaborate more on that. And sorry, when we circulate these slides, you'll see there's a template that's been embedded, which is just a helpful tool. It brings up a little spreadsheet of the types of costs that you might have in retirement. Very simple planning tool, and it helps you to identify these different brackets. Now, how do you then go about matching your needs or matching those two pots to an appropriate product? So in all the array of retirement products, that first pot of how do I get peace of mind and secure my income for life? A life annuity does that. And what it does is it gives you a guaranteed monthly income for life. You can set a benefit in there saying, if I pass away, my spouse continues to receive 100% or 75% or whatever percentage is appropriate. And there's possibility to even say, and it'll be paid for at least 10 years while I've got dependents who may be going to university or something. That monthly income will never decrease and it will continue for your whole life. And then there's various types of products here which will give you some form of increase to protect against inflation. Full protection against inflation is generally quite costly. Some sort of fixed increase each year is maybe a little bit risky, especially in the current environment when the market is saying they expect higher inflation in the longer term, given the problems South Africa is facing at the moment. Or with profits where you link your increases to some sort of balanced investment portfolio, which will generally keep pace with inflation. So at least that will give you an income for life. Whatever that is, you can at least set and know that you've got that level of income to match your essential expenses. Then the second part, the living annuity products that are out there is something that allows you a lot of flexibility and choice. You have to manage that very carefully though. So there's lots of information out there and people talking about lots of things. I'm going to be quite black and white on this slide and then end the presentation saying, but you should always take investment advice from a professional. So the black and white message is if you can draw less than 4% per annum from this type of vehicle, you should be able to sustain your income for life and perhaps even leave some capital for beneficiaries at the end. if you draw more than that, then you should make sure that pot one is going to meet your needs, or, and this is where I'm being quite black and white, or you will become a financial dependent of those you think you're leaving a legacy to. It's really important to take on board that message and then go away and do the budgeting exercise, talk to a financial advisor to help you with your specific circumstances. And here you're managing your own investments, hopefully with the help of an advisor, and setting an investment strategy that makes sense in the context of your aspirations. Or these are fairly new products, and Just is really proud to be at the forefront of development of this, where you can actually combine both of these in one place. That makes it easier to manage, and you can combine the certainty that a life annuity gives you with the flexibility of a living annuity, and be able to change that decision as you go along to be able to top up your life annuity from the living annuity. So we call this blended annuity, and for those on the call, I'm sure you'll identify, as I do, with the Cremora ad. So if you think, how do I blend in retirement? Just think it's the opposite of Cremora. It's not on top, it's inside, because you can put that life annuity into a living annuity to give you the flexibility. And then, as I mentioned earlier, really think about whether you need advice, particularly if you're in that spectrum of where you are managing your assets to try to sustain them for life. So very useful to get financial advice if you need help understanding your options. If your personal financial circumstances are not just like everybody else's, so you need some specific advice. If you need to allow for other forms of saving, or I'm living in a house, how do I get income out of my house through retirement? Or also if you're paying tax, and what are the implications of various decisions that you make. 95% of South Africans get to retirement without sufficient money to maintain their lifestyle. So that's something which most people face. What is really important then is that when you get to that point of retirement, make sure you optimize what you have got to retirement with, to balance out your different needs over time. So I think, Linda, I'm in line with my timing, and I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully that lands the high level messages, and yeah, happy to engage further with anybody, however that makes sense. Great, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address everybody.
Thank you so much, Dean. Well done on keeping to your time. I'm obviously quite a bully when it comes to this time thing. I was on a call with Partners for Possibility yesterday celebrating their book, and there were about 150 people on the call, one of them being Edward Kisvetter, the SARS commissioner. And he said, everybody who knows Louise knows that she bullies the men into supporting her program. So maybe I obviously bully the speakers on this program into keeping to time. So thank you, Dean. We really appreciate that. And again, for everybody, please, if you have any questions or comments around my presentation or Dean's, please make sure you put them in the chat box. That's where we're going to pull the questions from for the next section. Right, even though we had a bad start, I hope that everybody enjoyed that process. For some of you, it might have been a first. I really would love you to share again in the chat box your thoughts, some questions that came up, some reflections. That helps us enormously when it's a big group like this to be able to just get a sense of the essence of how everyone is feeling, and because it's very difficult to allow you all to talk at once. So our third speaker now is Emma Alcarot from One Circle HR. Emma is one of the partners of 50Plus, and Emma is the CEO and founder, and heard this morning that she is one of 2 finalists in a competition in the United States on technology and in the demand economy in a Shark Tank competition for funding. So Emma, I just want to say we're really, really proud of you, and the opportunity for you to be here with us and to share is just amazing.
Thank you. Thanks a lot,
Over
Linda.
to you, Emma.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for being here. I do know some of the people. It's funny, most of us who ended up in the breakout room, we knew each other. It's a small world. So I'm going to start because I know you're going to start timing me. And then, yeah, what am I going to talk to you about today? A bit more positivity after Dean's presentation, I hope. And just for us to actually dream together of this opportunity in a weird kind of way that COVID-19 has put in front of us. But I don't, and this is one of the things that actually we discuss in the breakout room, is that when we talk about uncertainty, today it is as well like exponential uncertainty. So it's the type of uncertainty that the whole world is living. So it's not a small thing, it's a lot of change, and there's a lot of disruption. But as well, the most disrupted, ironically, is us. It's our mindset and our behavior. So these are the most disrupted. And we talk about technology, tools, etc. But if we take a step back, the billions of people are behaving differently and thinking differently. And this is where I want to talk to you a little bit about this whole new way of working that is emerging and how this impacts our behaviors, our mindsets, our brains, and all of this. So because it is still disruption and it's not easy, if we take a step back pre-COVID, when we talk about remote, virtual, and on-demand, a lot of businesses, and I'm talking especially in South Africa and in our context over here, a lot of businesses were not convinced at all about remote working, virtual, and on-demand. And this is because there was a lot of excuses. So as per entrepreneur.com, everybody was giving excuses around the time zone juggles. If you're hiring somebody virtually, they're going to be working in a different time zone. It's different when you are doing real-time collaboration than doing it virtually. What about information and safety and security of information, confidentiality, etc.? So, and a lot of businesses were thinking that, you know what, it's too much, it's too big of a challenge, it's too much of a shift. Do I really want to go through this as a business? Why would I change? And then suddenly we flicked a switch, right? It's funny because those same businesses today, they are working remotely, they are working virtually, they are leveraging on-demand talent, and they are starting to experience benefits that everybody was talking about before. So as per Forbes.com, productivity actually increased 35 to 40% more when you are working remotely. And the reason being is that us as humans, our productivity is tied up not only to focusing, and we're going to talk a bit more about that, but also our conscious is, it alerts us that, you know, you're working remote, you want to give it your best shot, you want to give it more, etc. And a couple of days ago, actually, there was an article that was a big boom on the internet about Microsoft employees, whereby they are actually working 4 hours more than what they usually used to work when they started working from home. And that applies to a lot of people. And so our performance as well when it comes to location, and because working remotely is actually location agnostic, so you produce results that are much better. So there is less opportunity to make mistakes because you are more focused, and you're 100% on what you are doing. As well, when we talk about remote and virtual work, if you are part of an organization, then there is less turnover because people get more engaged. But what is important is for us, from the perspective of what we are talking about, is that if you are running your own business as an entrepreneur, you will get more profitability because you don't need to hire people full-time. You don't need to have a location. You can work remotely. And the best thing is that if you go on your own today, nobody's going to ask you, where is your office? And how come you don't have an office? So this whole new way of working is actually what is referred to as the open talent models. Open talent means the outreach is really big. It becomes a really global pool, and it's going mainstream. And the best thing that I would like you to think about is, in this open talent model and in the network talent ecosystem, it doesn't really matter your age, your location, your gender. It's all it's bias free, right? It doesn't really matter. So you could be anywhere. So who still talks about retirement when we have open talent models, right? Because you're literally providing your skills and your services. So it doesn't really matter what is your age. Ironically, the more expertise and depth of expertise you have, the more you are wanted in the talent economy, and the more you can plug in to networked talent ecosystems. So businesses are challenged, and us as well. Our mindsets are challenged in terms of, what do we believe work is? Work is a place to go to, and this is what we thought the whole time, right? But today, work is actually location agnostic. Doesn't really matter where you are working. You can be anywhere, for that matter. So this is where, when I spoke about the mindset and our behaviors, we are challenged about the idea of how work is done. And when we think about it from this perspective, this means that you have more opportunity today when you have got those years of experience to support you, to actually plug into ecosystems where your experience is valued, and nobody's going to tell you you've reached retirement or you're almost reaching retirement. So as much as businesses are adapting, you as well need to adapt. And this is actually my message to you, because it's as much as people think it is easy, and to shift to virtual work, it is not. And actually, in the breakout session, Jane spoke about that in terms of the exhaustion that comes with it. So there's the excitement and there's the exhaustion. So what is exciting about working virtually from a brain perspective? It's a new normal, right? So you think that it's really cool because the world become my oyster. I can talk to people in the US, in Australia, in the UK, different time zones, morning, night. So there's a lot of excitement I'm learning by engaging with people that are not in my usual normal geographical environment. So the brain is in that state of continuous excitement and creativity, because when you learn and you grasp new concepts, it's amazing. I mean, Linda was saying that she attended this event about the launch of a book, right, Linda? And you've learned new stuff. You actually straight away implemented it and plugged it into your message today because you thought that it is really relevant. But under normal circumstances, you would have been busy out meeting with people physically in your geographical location. You would have never known about that. But and as well, there is there's a bit of reduction of stress because you feel that you are more in control of your environment. You know, nobody's stressing you to go stay in traffic for 2 hours for that meeting that's going to take you 30 minutes. Ideally, you know, it's nice to meet people, so I get that. But I'm sure a lot of you have thought, oh, now I have to sit in traffic for 2 hours for that cup of coffee. It's better be worth it. but yeah, so it gives you more autonomy. But this whole excitement comes with challenge. And it challenges our brain. It challenges our brain for the same reasons that make us social animals. You know, we like interaction. We like this social grease that we have, if I may call it. So what I mean by that is we are being human. We use all of our senses. Notice I always use my hands. I can't help it. But so we use our vision, we use our hearing, but when it comes to actually a virtual meeting, I cannot smell you, I cannot touch you. It feels weird. We're used to shaking hands. Okay, now we're not going to shake hands anymore. But no, not all of our senses are alerted, which means that the brain is continuously readjusting to considering this as a human interaction, whereas we cannot use all of our senses. And this feeling of being isolated. So, and it becomes more under lockdown because of the virtual setup of it. But this feeling of isolation, it's not normal. And we become less creative sometimes because we are not leveraging on interactions. So this is where it's the pros and cons. I'm not contradicting myself. What I'm saying is, if you use virtual interactions in the right manner, it can increase your creativity. But if you don't, then you will become really less creative. And it's because our brains process less efficiently when we are virtual. So then what is our option? How are we going to connect with the world? So we connect with the world with virtual meetings like that, right? And this is where, as I said, as sensual beings, we are not using our senses. And I like this sentence from Psychology Today. Touch may, in fact, be more versatile than voice, facial expression, and other modalities for expressing emotions. And we cannot touch the people that we are talking and working with. So all of this technology that is in the video platforms, it's like our brains are constantly processing an error message. Yeah. And the reason being that even though you can see the picture very clear, there is continuously those pixels and lights on and off, etc., that are happening as we are talking because of the video conferencing. But we are not consciously aware about it. The subconscious is aware about it, and it's continuously processing this error message. And the one thing that I really like about virtual meetings and how it challenges the brain is that you notice how you always have this tendency to look at yourself on the cam. You leave everybody else and you can't help it. You look at yourself because ideally you want to be the primary focus of attention. So, and then you start avoiding it, right? You don't want to look at yourself because you need to look at everybody else. And when you are talking to other people as well, it's difficult because you feel that it's weird that they are not actually looking at you. So yes, it comes with the whole virtual experience. And if you are experiencing that, it is okay. It's normal, and everybody is going through that. And today, it's an opportunity for you to start engaging with the whole world virtually and put your experience into play. And this is like creating the right environment for you to use your experience in a way that is so convenient without even leaving the comfort of your home. So this is where I think about it as an opportunity. So if you are experiencing this exhaustion or you're zoomed out, it's fine, it's okay, be easy on yourself, because it's normal and everybody is, right? So try to limit the number of people, even in your family video gathering. Don't bring everybody together. Connect with the people you love separately, because when everybody is in, it becomes very exhausting and then you don't benefit out of it. Don't do back-to-back video meetings. I'm very guilty of that. So, but I try to control myself. Don't be hard on yourself, and always try to hide your own image on the video chat. Otherwise, you are consciously trying to look at yourself to see how you look, to fix your hair, etc. And we are never satisfied with the way we look at ourselves in video. So one of the advices that I would like to give you, if you are thinking about embracing this whole new way of working, virtually, remotely, on demand, to work on projects that are within your area of expertise, I would say one of the most important things is to practice mindfulness. So always try to be present. It enhances your productivity, your output, your health, your inner peace. So it reduces stress, it elevates performance. It's amazing. And mindfulness means the quality of presence. So always try to be present in the moment, and all of this exponential uncertainty that we were talking about, just try to avoid the noise that is out there. I'm gonna stop sharing now. I would like to really thank you for this opportunity. There's so many pluses and minuses. I see this personally as an opportunity for all of us to plug into ecosystems, to use our skills, to work on projects, to earn money while we are sitting at home. So yeah, that's it from my side. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. Wonderful, Emma. Thank you very much. In fact, this morning, just before we started, Michelle, who is the marketing manager at Just, she and I chatted about how different this was from our Just conference in November last year, where she and Dean had to fly up from Cape Town, and we all had to drive in the traffic to be at the venue. And so this just makes it so much easier for more of us with less stress, a lot less stress. And I want to just teach you one thing quickly that I learned this week, where Emma talked now about not looking at yourself, but everybody else can see you. So if you look at the 3 dots in your top of your picture, one of them says stop video. So click on that. We'll still be able to see you, but you won't be able to see yourself. And then just put it back on by starting the video again. So that's one of the ways, because what Emma is talking about is that we struggle when we can see ourselves, because in normal conversations, we can't do that. So thank you, Emma. It's wonderful to have you as a partner, and we'll share all the details of all of the speakers afterwards. Please make sure you put your questions and your comments in the chat. I'm now going to hand over to Kim. So Kim is from Chartered Wealth. Kim saved my life at 52 by making me face myself in the mirror around my own finances, and I will eternally and always be grateful. That doesn't mean that it's an easy journey, but without the direction of good, solid financial advice, you make it much harder for yourself. So over to you, Kim.
Thank you, Linda, and thanks for the introduction. No pressure, saved your life. I think that's a bit of an understatement, and I must just add to what Linda's saying. If Linda, first of all, hadn't been brave enough to face things, it wouldn't have worked. As a financial planner, you can give all the advice in the world. You can give so much advice, and if people aren't ready to hear it, and they aren't ready to actually take the action and do the work, the advice is nothing. So Linda, you did the hard work and you were the courageous one. So take that. I'm going to share my screen. Can you believe, Linda, how far I've come with technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm proud of you too. Have I not made?
No, I'm fine. I unmuted myself. I was so busy bragging about how far I've come with technology. It's just Murphy's Law. I always say with a computer, it's a little bit like a horse. It senses when you're scared of it, and it makes sure it throws you out. So I was so busy bragging about my computer skills that I muted myself. So Linda, you can hear me perfectly now.
Perfect. All good.
Okay, great. So what I know I shared with, and a lot of you were at the talk last year, so I've done a different talk, and I'm doing it on virus-proof your money and manage your financial plan through a pandemic. And today we're just going to, because we're on strict time, I'm going to be sharing 8 ways that you can act now on that with you. It's an ebook that I've written, and Linda is going to be sharing the ebook with you all so that you can download it after the talk. And hopefully it can be of help to you. So to get started, very much what Dean's been talking about, what Linda's been talking about, I'm just going to be confirming that in fact it is really true. And to start off with, we all need to be looking at this whole thing like a puzzle, because there are just so many pieces that we need to be considering. And we can't leave any of the pieces off. So from my side, the piece that I see getting left off all the time is money. I see people wanting to plan everything else about their retirements, but when I ask them about their money, they often feel like they haven't got enough, or it's brought them a lot of conflict. So they dig their head in the sand, and then they're not looking at the money. And what I'm here today to share with you is to say to you that life and money need to be planned for. At the end of the day, money is the enabler for you to be able to have a life. So don't ignore it and bring it in. You'll see there that I call it Retiremeant, and you'll see it's trademarked, because what I don't want you to believe in is the retirement like it used to be. Those days are gone. We are not going to retire like we used to retire. We're going to be doing it completely differently. And really the definition that I use of retirement is really a time in your life where you get to live some of your unfulfilled dreams on your own time and in your own terms. So importantly, it's first of all knowing what those unfulfilled dreams are. It's having a clear picture of what they are, and then working out how you can make this possible. And yes, you do need to look at how your money is going to help you make that possible. But, and Linda shared it with you this morning, and so is Emma, very importantly, we all think that our only asset is our money, but in fact, it is not true at all. Our greatest asset is ourselves. And I think one thing about this COVID and us being at home, I'm seeing, and I work with a lot of clients going through this transition, we're becoming more reflective. We are really questioning what life we were living. We're looking forward at when we come out of COVID, and what are some of the things that we want to change. And I think if we look at the new way of working very much and how we can do it, we need to do the introspective work and work out what it is, our gift is that we bring to the world. I meet so many people in this transition who don't want to bring their gift to the world because they are so scared of it being rejected. And again, we go into this phase of our lives where we have gifts, yet we keep them a secret. And I say that because we look at technology, we look at social media, and we look at promoting ourselves, and we kind of think, you know what, if I go out there and I say that about myself, aren't I coming out as too bragging? If I go out there on social media, what are other people going to think? But at the same time, if we're not out there, we're not showing the world what our gifts are, how does the world come to us for what we've got to offer? And also, when we in this next phase of our lives, if we start devaluing ourselves, and I hear it all the time, people saying, well, there's a couple of things. They don't want to sometimes get a job or do work where they're going to earn less than they used to earn. Because then they say, you know what, if I'm earning less, then I'm not being valued, which is not the truth. We might just be able to be more flexible and bring us our skills still to be paid. So look at still earning money. It might not be the same amount, but also when we are in this phase, we might often say, well, you know what, I'll do this for free, and I'll do this charity work, and I'll do this. We get, that is what we are telling ourselves, that we're not worth anything. And if we tell the world, if we don't believe we're worth something, then the world's going to see that we're not worth anything either. So we must become clear. And that brings me to my next slide. We must become clear on our relationship with money. So I think this period, and I'm encouraging all of you, while you're at home now and you've got this time to do this introspective work, to really think about your relationship with money and to reevaluate what money means to you. Our relationships with money are formed by the age of 7. And yet, most of us don't even understand we've got a relationship with money. Our relationship with money is longer than our relationship's going to be with anything else. It starts when we're born and it goes right through until we're planning our deaths. So importantly, it's to start saying, what does money mean to me? Where does my first money memory come from? And what is it? Does these money memories actually serve me? I meet so many people that have got money memories that have actually limited their beliefs around money and limited their beliefs about themselves, so that they actually sabotage themselves all the time because of it. So consider your relationship with money, and then also go a little bit deeper, because most of it is in our subconscious. Most of it is happening that we're not even aware of it. We start telling ourselves about money, and we start telling us about things we believe it gives us, like power and security and love. And we have a story playing in our head. It's an absolute story that goes all the time. And because we think it so much, it starts becoming our reality. So when your brain is in that kind of, sometimes I call it spiraling down place, stop yourself and say, is this a reality or is this my belief? And yes, we have, I think, as a nation, as a world, as people, we've really put money in the wrong place. And we are on hamster wheels, and we're chasing it to have more and more of it, because we believe if we have a bigger car or we have a fancier house, potentially we're going to feel more satisfied, and we're going to feel more loved, and we're going to feel more valuable. So, very important. It's to reevaluate what it means to you. Get it in the right place. We want money to be your servant, not your master. We don't want money controlling you. We want you to have it in a place where actually it's working for you, and what it happens to do is enable your dreams. My number 4 point that I wanted to share with you, and Dean has mentioned how important a budget is. You know, just on that, I call it a spending plan instead of a budget, because I want people to not put things down on it that they actually are spending, because it is so essential when you're in retirement. It is actually vital that you know what your monthly spend is, and that you understand what it is that you need. Because when you do planning, and when you do financial planning like Linda did, if you say you need X, in the meantime you're spending double that, all the planning that you've done is actually a waste of time. So it's quite an exercise to get clear with yourself what it is that you actually need, and then to go through it and actually look at what it is you're spending and decide which is vital spend and which spend you can do away with. I find that doing this exercise, there's sometimes expenses that we're doing on debit orders and subscriptions that we can get rid of. It's just that we haven't thought about it. So please do this. Don't see that budget as that terrible word. Important that you just know where you are. Then another point that I wanted to share with you around this period as we're in COVID and we're thinking around our money, it's very much to understand that you have 2 pots of money. And Dean was talking about a living annuity, and very much when we have living annuities and investments that we can't change how we get the money from that only once a year, those are called non-liquid investments. And when we have our other money in our money market accounts and our unit trusts, those are liquid money, so that we are able to get to it. I see with clients at the moment, it's quite difficult because they might have more extra expenses and they have family that needs money. So they start using their liquid money and they start sharing it with people that need it. But what is that is meaning is that later in the years to come, they're going to only have money that's non-liquid, that they're not able to get to unless it's once a year. And what that does is it upsets the balance of your money. You need to always be looking at keeping a balance between your liquid money and your non-liquid money in retirement. And that is a mistake that I see clients making all the time. So really encourage you to come to work that out for yourself and not to go into all your liquid investments, because in liquid investments are there for emergencies and you really need to have that money available. Number 6 that I wanted to share with you is to share this time to get your financial affairs in order. This is another one that none of us like talking about because it's really hard. But what I do find is with COVID and with what's going on around us, it is something that a lot of us are starting to think about, just because we're seeing heartache all around us with deaths. Have the conversation with your family. So I want to start there, is don't keep this all as a secret to yourself. Have these kind of conversations. Prepare your families emotionally. Share with them with what you've done so that they can be part of the process. It's not the olden days where the file gets brought out if something happens to you. And on that, just to put a couple of pointers that you need to get into, we call this a legacy file that you need to get together. Make sure you have wills. They're the most important documents. Yet I cannot believe it how many talks that I do when people tell me they don't even have wills. Please make sure you get one. And also check your beneficiaries on your policies. That's another thing that people forget to do, and they don't have beneficiaries on their policies. And another thing that's quite important that you look at is your digital estate. Write down passwords, put them somewhere so that your family can find them, because that really is helpful. While they're mourning, you don't want them dealing with or finding things like that. And another discussion that is an interesting one to have is having a living will. Saying that if you don't want to go on machines, having organ donation is another important discussion to be having. And the final one is potentially having a power of attorney that you can give to your partner so that they can make certain decisions when you can't. And those are just a few pointers that I wanted to share with you. There's so many more, but that would be for an hour's talk. Number 7 is, because we're in this time, and I think we've shifted. We really have shifted things. We're reimagining how we're coming out of it. We use this concept called a bucket wheel. It's like a balance wheel. It's ideas of things that you want to do in this next phase of your life. And all of these ideas, we use the balance wheel to get the list so that you don't just think of areas of play. It is so important that you start looking around work, give back, relationships, money, learn, health, purpose, and play, and say, these are the areas in my life that are working, so I'm going to bring them onto my list. There's certain things that you might not want to be doing anymore, so take those off of your bucket wheel, and so it can make space for new ideas and new things that you want to be doing when we come through this pandemic and through this transition. And this bucket wheel, you then add monetary values to all the things you want to do so that you can see that you can afford to do them. There is no point in you going out there and doing everything and then one day running out of money and then becoming reliant on other people. It is so important that you're keeping this balance between making sure that you'll always have enough money to do it all. And finally, it's get a financial plan. I cannot encourage you all of you more than I can to say it is so important to have a plan. Don't put your head in the sand and think that things are going to work out without a plan. You really need to have one. And then the big thing is stick to it. And then they want to make changes. And I just want to mention 3 biases to you. The one bias that I wanted to mention to you is one of action bias. So many people just think at the moment that they have to do something with their money, because if they're not doing something with their money, they feel they're not in control of it. The best thing you can be doing right now with your investments is sitting on your hands and not doing anything else. Please also remember this herd bias of us all trying to follow everybody else. When we get in the news on different channels, it's too late. We shouldn't be making those kind of moves. And finally, looking for confirmation bias. When we have an idea and then somebody else tells us about it, we want to follow their bias. So stick to your plan, have somebody that's objective, that is knowledgeable on this to be partnering you through it. And finally, just to say, if you'd like to download my ebook, it's called Virus Proof Your Retirement. I think Linda is going to be sending it to you. Please download it, share it, read it, and implement some of the ideas that I'm giving you. And also, we have a website called retiresuccessfully.co.za, where clients are sharing their stories of this transition and what they're doing. It's a great read, and I encourage all of you. It gives you a lot of motivation and ideas for this phase.
Thank you, Kim. That was
Linda.
fabulous. It was lovely how all of the talks just kind of fitted together, and I never told anyone what they needed to speak about. I just said they needed to speak about something different from what they had spoken about in November. And each of us are always at a different stage. And so when we hear it, we're at a stage where we need to hear what it is that's being said, whether it was from my talk, from Kim, from Dean, or from Emma, or from all four. So I really would, before Jane takes over for the Q&A, please, if you have any questions for Dean, myself, Emma, or Kim, Kim, just put them in the chat box. But I'd also like you to make a comment in the chat box about the event today. What was it that stood out for you? What did you enjoy? Good practice to be able to use the chat box and engage with the group. So please do that for us. We really would appreciate that. So Jane, I'm going to hand over to you. We've only got 6 minutes till the hour. So are there any questions that you have seen that need to be addressed?
So there's just 2 questions. One Dean has answered. It was a question of, when you retire, don't your living expenses decrease? And as Dean said, yes, they do. You're moving out of a big house into maybe a retirement home. So your rates should come down, but then what are your levies in the retirement home? So it just talks to really thinking about what are your expenses going to be. Kim,
Jane, can I just add something onto that about the living expenses? Because that's a common thing that clients say to me when they come in and we look at it, they say, but Kim, when we get to a certain age, then our expenses are going to be reduced, so we're not going to travel, we're not going to do this. We've got to also be open to the fact that more and more of these retirement villages, more and more of the medical care that we need also increases. So it's not always that it becomes cheaper. It's a lot of the times it just changes where we're allocating our money to. So be careful of not thinking it's going to be much less.
Mm-hmm. And then Kim, there was a question for you from Margie. She asked, what about having an advance directive?
Help. I don't know what advance directive is.
Margie, I'm going to let Margie answer it because I think it's a critical thing for all of us. So Margie, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Just to say that it's a document that one completes to enable people to know how you wish to be when you are unable to communicate that. So it goes beyond a living will. It is a document, and one can access it through Dignity South Africa, or I can email a copy of a draft to whoever would like, that in which you indicate in much more detail than a living will, choices you would like to be made on your behalf when you are unable to communicate those.
Okay.
So it's a very important document. It's still debatable about its legal position, but it's important to let your loved ones know, let your medical officer know what choices you would like to make. If you had a stroke and you cannot communicate, and people are going to be doing for you, then you want them to do for you in the manner in which you would like to be. So it's always about how do we wish to be. And we need to communicate that now, while we're still able to, for the event when we are unable to.
Thanks, Margie. And maybe, Linda, I could just add one thing there that I also encourage you all to do. It's a thing called a letter of wishes. I mean, it's different to what Margie's talking about. But again, I see so many families torn apart by sometimes the assets that are left behind. And when we leave behind and we have these good intentions, and then the people in our families want the same things. And so I encourage people to write a letter of wishes in that they say, you know, thank you very much. But this is the following things that I would like to happen with my assets. And these are small assets that I'm talking about. Maybe if you've got something that's sentimental value to you, jewelry, then put all of that in your letter of wishes. And it also helps your children to know what your wishes are.
Wonderful. So Margie runs the SA Care Forum and deals a lot with much of what happens in that last stage, the older old. And so Margie, if you can just resend me that document, I'll make sure that it also just goes to everybody. It's just another piece that you can add to the file of what you're putting together. Any other questions, Jane?
No, that was all. That was all. Yeah.
Okay, great. Obviously you're a very knowledgeable bunch, but we're very grateful for you being here. Again, thank you to Dean and to Michelle for the sponsoring of this event, and to Emma and to Kim as the speakers, and to my 50+ team. I really appreciate you all. These things do not happen in isolation. They take a lot of energy and effort to put together. But more than anything, we appreciate all of you and also all our business partners. Some of you are on this call as a result of SADC being a member, or Financial Planning Institute, or National Business Initiative, or Chartered. So please, thank you to all of our partners, to all of you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.